Had a good Christmas. Got to enjoy some time with your family and all that goes kind of along with Christmas. We had a great Christmas. Last Christmas, Clinton was deployed to Korea, so he was not able to be at home and to get to celebrate Christmas with us. We had to send his gifts and things to Korea. I think all of which he left in Korea when he came home for somebody else to enjoy. But so we were blessed this year that he got to be here and got to be home for Christmas. And so I just want to say, I know lots of you guys ask me about Clinton a lot. I know lots of you guys are praying for Clinton. So just thank you so much for all the prayers that are lifted up and all the times that you guys ask and just check on him and make sure he's doing okay. I did want to share a little bit of news. Mike stole the thunder a little bit. But on Saturday, November 30th, Jesus is all. On Saturday, November 30th, Noah and Taylor were married in Ohio. A lot of you knew that. A lot of you gave gifts or money for them, but you might not know that they're back in town for a little while. They've been here the last few weeks. We're glad they're back. We're not sure exactly how long they get to be back because they've got some job interviews in other states and things like that. But we are thankful that they are here and with us once more. What you may not have known is that was not the only wedding that took place that weekend, because Daniel and Cherie were also married that weekend. So, which now we've got a shower for you guys coming up. Just wanted to say congrats. We love you both, the guys, and we celebrate with you. We're excited for y'all as you begin your new life together. And then there's one more thing I want to let you know. Most of you guys know Cade. There he is in his Dunder Mifflin office t-shirt. He's not here this morning, so he's not here to hear me brag on him. They're skiing this week. But as most of you know, Cade is a pretty gifted teacher, a pretty gifted speaker. He was actually supposed to preach on our last Youth Sunday, but he ended up making regionals in cross country, and so y'all had to listen to me instead. But part of the reason that I asked him to preach on October 27th is because we were trying to get a 5-minute video clip of him speaking so we could send it to Pepperdine University for the Next Generation Preacher Search. This is something they do each year. It's for sophomores through all the way up through seniors or juniors in college. And they put them through kind of a preaching camp, seminar type thing. So they choose some to actually come to Pepperdine. And if you're chosen, that's awesome. But even if you're not chosen, they look at your 5-minute video. They critique it. You've got a bunch of preachers that look at it and kind of give you some tips and advice. And so Cade didn't get to preach. So I said, well, how about you come on Wednesday night right before you leave for regionals, and I'll just film you for 5 minutes. You can talk on whatever you want to talk on. And so he really didn't have a lot of time to prepare, but we threw together a video, and he actually spoke for about 10 minutes. We found 5 minutes of it to send in, and he was super excited about just getting the feedback from some preachers, and never really thinking that he would be selected. And about a month after we sent that video in, we got the call that indeed Cade was selected as one of the 22 from across the nation to get to go to Pepperdine. And for this preaching seminar camp thing. I don't even have very many details about it. Jeff Walling comes and talks about it at Winterfest each year. And so I thought, man, and as soon as I heard about it, I was like, Cade needs to do this. And at that point, Cade was like a 7th grader, and you couldn't put it in until you were a sophomore. So he got to put that in, and he will be getting to go. And I thought it was this summer, but it's not. It's at the end of January. So like I said, I didn't have a whole lot of details, but I did try to tell David and Candace that I would be happy to help chaperone, because I know what a crazy kid Cade is, but they said they thought they had it. I figured I could go to the beach, but they said that they had it handled, and so their family will be going to Malibu, California here at the end of the month, which is pretty cool. So if you see Cade when he gets back, make sure you tell him congratulations and just be praying for that's a blessing for his family and that he learns a lot, he grows from the experience, but that it's a good time. Two other requests I want to make of you today. Two things. First thing, last week, David challenged you to give grace to someone who may not deserve it. All right, go ahead and click to the next slide. You don't remember, there he is. Remember last week I said, I challenge you to give grace this week to someone who may not deserve it. I'm just here to tell you that I will accept any and all grace that you want to throw my way this morning. I told David that I would preach several weeks ago today, but didn't know that the day after Christmas that I was going to come down sick. And so I finally got up here yesterday and felt good enough about 11 a.m. to sit down and write something. So just simply ask for grace today, which leads me to request number 2. Don't be too upset today if the sermon is fairly short. There's Kristen Chenoweth with Boban, who now plays for the Mavs, but he's 7'3", she's 4'11", and so just don't be too upset with me today if we get out of here a little early. Guys, I love adventure books. And for Christmas, Ashley bought me the Space Trilogy by C.S. Lewis. It's a science fiction series that he started writing in the late 30s. And it finished it in the 40s. I'm already well into the books. I got them for Christmas. I've already been reading them because I was sick and kind of having to just sit around. So I'm really liking them, really enjoying them. And I just really love a good story. I love the way it unfolds, and I love the way that the plot comes into crisper view as you kind of turn the pages and as you go through the book. I like to wonder what's going to happen next as you kind of ponder like what twist is coming or which one's going to throw me for a loop. I just really kind of like a good story. So Out of the Silent Planet is the first book in this series. It was written, like I said, in 1938. And here's what's crazy. If I would have ordered a copy from the Sears and Roebuck catalog way back in 1938, or if I ordered it off Amazon in 2019, which is how Ashley got it, the words are the same. The plot is the same. The conclusion is the same. Nothing about it has changed over all that time. But that got me thinking about another kind of book. The Choose Your Own Adventure book. You remember these? They were pretty popular in the 80s and 90s. They sold like 250 million copies of all these different books. If you don't remember these books, my kids recently received a newer version, a Duck Dynasty version of these Choose Your Own Adventure books. In these type books, you read along in the story, right, until you are forced to make a choice at the bottom of the page. So click to that next slide, Peter. So here we go. We got Phil and the Ghost of Camp Chioka, which several of our kids have been to. So that was kind of interesting. But some of these books have as many as 40 plus possible endings. So Trey and Logan will actually be working at this camp, I believe, this summer. Not sure if y'all knew that camp had a darker side. So just be careful. But you read along, and then when you get to the end, get to the decisions that you have to make that tell you which way to go. So do you tell John Luke to go inside the cabin and then check out the screen yourself? Check out the screen with John Luke and your machete? Or do you call the cops and drive home, right? So, and then you, depending on what you do, leads to different conclusions of the book. Most of y'all have probably seen something like that. Got me thinking about life. Life is kind of similar to these. You can go ahead and click back to that other one. We'll get to that in a second. It got me thinking about life. Life is similar to these Choose Your Own Adventure books. We get to make lots of decisions as we journey through life. We get to decide much of our direction in life. We have the freedom to seize opportunities. We have We have the freedom to ignore opportunities. We get to decide what dreams to chase and which ones to shelve, right? We have the freedom to flee from temptation, or we have the freedom to embrace it. We really do have the free will to choose a lot about our life. But in these choose your own adventure books, not all the plot points are choosable. In those books, you get to choose a lot, but you don't get to choose everything. Some things are written down and you don't get a choice. Your only choice is to just read on and journey ahead. That's kind of like life, isn't it? We get to choose a lot in our life. But then unexpected things enter our book that we never would have chosen. But the only choice is to read on. And that got me thinking about our church family and just kind of life in general. Because lately, it seems many have had to endure parts of their story that they did not choose, nor would they have ever chosen them. It might have been untimely deaths, unexpected surgery complications, sickness, aging parents, cancer, and on and on and on. And as I thought about these parts of our stories, I realized that while we may not have a choice of each plot point in our story, we do get to choose how to read the story, how the story reads. And I began to think about stories that I had heard growing up, like a story where a favored son is sold into slavery, falsely accused and put in prison. All things he didn't choose, only to rise to a place of prominence where he could enact vengeance on the brothers who had sold him into slavery. And instead, he offered them provisions, a place to stay, and most importantly, forgiveness. Or a story about a godly man who seemed to have it all. Wealth, a large family, a good name, status, only to see it all vanish as 4 messengers brought news that saw his entire world crumble away. He chose none of these things to be part of his story, and any one of them could have easily been the undoing of a man. But instead, it is a tale of enormous trust and a tale of patient enduring in the midst of unbelievable trials. Or what about a story that could have been a depressing account of two innocent men chained up and thrown into the interior of the prison? Something they certainly did not choose. And instead, it becomes a story about having hope and joy when reading parts of the story that we don't choose. It's about singing and looking up when all else is looking down. Or the fact that many of our New Testament books could have been filled with sadness and bitterness, as many were written by a man who was under house arrest. Yet in these books we see gentleness, joy, peace, and forgiveness. They abound with love and passion for people. Or how about a king who is not welcomed into the world, who is rejected and despised by men, who is seen as a threat instead of a savior, who is constantly harassed and questioned, who is all-powerful and had at his disposal an army of angels that could have dealt with our rejection. And instead, he chooses the gift of sacrifice, the gift of forgiveness. Instead, he offers us grace and eternity. You get to choose many of the plot points of your life, but there will also be many that you do not choose. And some of those pages that you have to read are going to be difficult. And you may not get to choose what those pages say, but you do decide how you will read them. You don't get to choose. You do get to choose how you will adventure and who you will adventure with. 2 Corinthians, you got your Bible, you can turn there. 2 Corinthians 4. Verse 8, as Paul's writing, he says, "We are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed. perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. We always carry around in our body the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may also be revealed in our body. He goes on a little while later in that same passage in verse 16 to say, therefore, we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, though outwardly we are having to do things in our book, we're having to read pages of our book that are hard, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. Since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. Guys, I challenge you to courageously adventure with God as you read the story of your book. I challenge you to not lose heart. I challenge you to see any troubles that show up in your story, as terrible as they might be on this side of heaven, to be momentary and light. I challenge you to be renewed every day as you see the story as far bigger than the page you're reading right now. I challenge you to read your story with love and kindness and honesty and compassion, especially when the hard parts present themselves. I pray you read your story well. And when you don't, I pray you feel the grace and forgiveness of the one who knows all too well that stories can sometimes contain unexpected twists. Guys, as 2019 comes to a close, my prayer for you in 2020 is this. I pray that 2020 is a blessed year for you. I pray you seek God with all of your heart, soul, mind, and strength. I pray your year is filled with amazing moments. I pray there are a multitude of things to celebrate and many moments of happiness. I pray you discover new ways to serve God and that these bring you great joy. I pray sickness and disease stay far from you. I pray you do not see the untimely passing of a loved one. And I pray tragedy and calamity do not know your name. I pray you choose well as the story of your life continues to play out. I pray you heed God's guidance as you journey. I pray you avoid Satan's trappings and that you flee from sin. I pray you see Satan's lies for what they are and that you have the strength to run. I pray that the good times will far outweigh the hard times. But when the hard times come, I pray you know the power of the one who goes before you. I pray that because of this knowledge, you will have the heart of Joseph and offer love and kindness to those that wrong you. I pray that you have the trust and patience of Job as new obstacles appear. I pray you have the hope and joy of Paul and Silas as you encounter these obstacles. And I pray you have the heart of Paul as you write gentleness, compassion, and love for others onto the pages of your new year. And ultimately, I pray your heart continues to look more and more like the heart of our Messiah. A heart that chose you when he could have chosen safety for himself. A heart that chose a cruel cross and all that came with it so that you could conquer death and be resurrected as he was. You don't always get to choose what all your story will hold, but you do get to choose how you adventure and who you adventure with. Guys, if you need anything, come this morning while we stand and sing.